はい、Sigal. Hi, Yuki.
בוקר טוב.
בוקר טוב. סיגל?
כולם שומעים אותנו, אז אם אתה רוצה לדבר בפרטי, אז תדבר איתי בפרט.
לא, אני רוצה להגיד לכולם בוקר טוב. Good morning, Yuki.
Hi, good morning.
How is the morning in Tokyo? In Osaka or?
Yes, it's cold but
はい、どう
fine.
ぞ。ちょっと事前の始めます。
Sorry, it's starting soon, so please mute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we are crossing fingers for the success of the webinar.
皆様こんにちは。本日はイスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッションにご参加いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。まもなく開始のお時間となりますが、先立ちましてのご案内です。本日はオンラインの開催となります。途中、通信環境によっては映像や音声の乱れが生じることがございます。ご了承の上、ご参加いただきますようお願い申し上げます。それでは、今しばらくお待ちくださいませ。定刻となりましたので、ただいまよりイスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッションを開催いたします。私は本日の司会を務めさせていただきます。船木貴子と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。今回のイスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッションでは、駐日イスラエル大使館との共催により、現地イスラエルとライブで結び、イスラエル政府や日本企業のイスラエル現地法人の講演、イスラエル企業との交流、マッチングなどのバーチャルなミッション体験を通して、皆様のイスラエル企業との協業、連携による新事業展開などをご支援いたします。ここでご参加の皆様にご連絡とお願いがございます。本ミッションでの講演者へのご質問につきましては、Zoom 画面下の Q&A からご質問いただけます。日本人の方には日本語で、イスラエル企業の講演には英語でご記入ください。ご質問はできるだけ各社のプレゼンテーションの途中、または直後にお願いいたします。また、どの企業へのご質問かも合わせてご記入ください。なお、お時間の関係上、 すべてのご質問にお答えできない場合もございます。何卒ご了承くださいませ。最後に、本ウェビナーでは同時通訳をご利用いただけます。Zoom 画面下の地球の形のボタンから言語の選択ができます。日本語と英語のどちらかをお選びください。また、講演者のそのままのサウンドを希望される場合は、通訳機能をオフにしてご参加ください。それでは、お待たせいたしました。はじめに、ミッション開催にあたり、主催者代表及び本ミッションの団長であります、一般財団法人九州オープンイノベーションセンター会長、瓜生道明より皆様へご挨拶申し上げます。それではよろしくお願いいたします。
皆さん、こんにちは。九州オープンイノベーションセンター会長の瓜生でございます。今回のミッションでは団長という立場で参加しております。実は副団長としてですね、明日始まる前に少しご挨拶をしていただく予定の副団長さんをちょっとご紹介したいと思います。副団長さんはセイコー電機製作所のですね、代表取締役会長をお務めになっておられます土屋様にですね、副団長をお願いしております。土屋様はイスラエルにも1、2度ご訪問したことがあり、またイスラエルの企業様ともいろんな提携をやられている会社でございますので、明日またご挨拶いただきたいと思っております。さて、この度、イスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッションをですね、企画いたしましたところ、約130名の方々にお申し込みをいただいております。皆様方におかれましては、このコロナ禍、並びに期末の大変お忙しい中にもかかわらずですね、多数ご参加いただきまして、厚く御礼を申し上げる次第でございます。当企画は本来であればですね、実際にミッションをイスラエルに派遣して、イスラエル政府の方々とかのご面談とか、イスラエル企業の交流会、マッチング等を行う予定としておりましたが、新型コロナ感染症拡大の状況を鑑みまして、ウェブにてライブで現地と結んでですね、バーチャルなミッションを体験して、イスラエル政府や企業との連携、協業などを支援させていただくという目的で開催させていただいております。開催にあたりましては、共催をいただいております駐日イスラエル大使館経済部さんに多大なるご協力をいただきましたことに対して、厚く御礼を申し上げます。本当にありがとうございます。さて、まずはじめにですね、2020年4月に発足いたしました九州オープンイノベーションセンター、COICについてですね、ちょっと、宣伝をさせていただきたい、ご紹介をさせていただきたいと思っております。まず最初にですね、2020年の4月に、このCOICオープンイノベーションセンターが発足したときに作成いたしましたCOICの紹介ビデオございます。COICの成り立ちやミッションなどをご説明したものでございますので、ご覧になってくださいませ。音はここに入らない。
日進月歩で変化している技術革新やビジネスの世界、生活における AI や IoT の普及などにも見られるように、テクノロジーの急速な発展により産業構造も大きく変化しています。ビジネスにおいて過去の成功体験が通用しなくなっている今、まさに国内外の知見や技術を融合して世界の市場を獲得する時代に突入しています。しかしながら、これまでにないスピードで変化していく技術や市場に対応していくには、自社の資源のみでは限界があるのが現状です。今、日本の世界への影響力は GDP の推移から見て取れる通り急速に低下しています。一方、 中国やアメリカではベンチャー企業が次々と新しいビジネスモデルを起こし、世界の市場を牽引しています。こうした世界の新しい動きを取り入れ、世界の中で飛躍する九州の中小企業の支援を行うことを使命に誕生したのがCOIC九州オープンイノベーションセンターです。時代は自社リソースだけで完結させるのではなく、企業の枠を超えて商品・サービスを共に作り上げていくオープンイノベーションを推進する流れへと向かっています。COICのミッションは、オープンイノベーションによる社会課題の解決と新しい市場を作り、九州から世界へイノベーションの架け橋をつなぐことです。ここ九州の地で新しいことに挑戦する中小企業を情報提供からマッチングやコーディネートまで一貫して支援を行っていきます。また、世界のオープンイノベーションの拠点との交流やデジタル技術を駆使した新しいビジネスの開発を推進するなど、様々なプロジェクトも実施していきます。COICのロゴは宇宙の渦と光の矢で構成されています。大きなエネルギーを持つ宇宙の渦のように、企業や人の知恵を引き込み、光の矢のように未来に向かって新たなブレイクスルーを生み出したいという思いを表現しています。そんな思いとともに、私たちは中小企業の皆様と令和の新時代の九州の新しい成長を実現していきます。
はい、今ご覧いただきましたビデオのようにですね、当センターは世界的な環境エネルギー食料問題、そして日本国における人口減少、市場の縮小、地域活性力の維持など、社会の問題をですね、産業サイドのイノベーションによって解決して、九州の成長を推進することを目標としておりまして、2020年4月、2つの九州産業技術センターと九州地域産業活性化センターが合併いたしまして発足した組織でございます。技術革新や市場の変化のスピードが急激で、将来の予測が困難なVUCAの時代にあってはですね、従来の自前主義だとか一社単独での対応では限界がございますので、自社の経営資源をオープンにして外部の経営資源を組み合わせてですね、新商品、新サービスおよび新たな価値を創出するオープンイノベーションの取り組みが求められております。このため、当センターではオープンイノベーションを推進するプラットフォームとして、6つの場で活動を進めているところでございます。具体的には、1つ目の世界のイノベーションと交流する場、まさしく今回のイスラエルのイノベーション視察ウェブミッションがそれにあたります。それからニーズ、シーズを検索し事業化する場、異業種が交流し新事業を創出する場、それから大学シーズと起業化する場、市場と価値を作る人材を育成する場、そして九州の戦略産業を振興する場、この6つの場でございます。組織体制といたしましては、会長の私の下に事務局として、イノベーション推進部、技術振興部、総務部の3部制となっておりますが、今申し上げました6つの活動の場、プラットフォームではですね、が効果的に機能するためにはですね、当センター単独では限界がございますので、他の経済団体とか大学、自治体など、そういった機関と連携しながら進めているところでございます。次にCOICのオープンイノベーションと主要な事業についてご説明を申し上げます。COICでは先ほどご紹介いたしましたオープンイノベーションの6つの場を効果的に機能させる重要なツールが DX であると考えておりまして、以下の事業を展開しているところでございます。まずDX に対する経営層の理解の推進およびネットワークの構築を目指す九州デジタル経営塾、経営者を対象とした経営塾、それから次世代のリーダーに DX を学んでいくための九州ネクストリーダー塾、それから DX を個社に実装していくことを支援する九州 DX 研究会、 DX やデジタル化と表裏一体であります人と人のフィジカルな交流、コミュニケーションの場でございます九州異業種交流会など多様な事業を推進しておりますが、COICは先進の技術を世界に学んで交流を通じて企業のイノベーションを推進し成長していくことが重要と考えております。そこでCOICは設立当初からイスラエルの先進の技術に注目して医療、環境、AI、サイバーセキュリティなどをはじめとしたいろんな分野でのその仕組みを学ぶセミナーを開催してまいりました。昨年のイスラエルを知るセミナーではですね、世界の先進先端技術を生み出すイスラエルの投資環境、さらにはスタートアップネーションと言われ、6800社以上のスタートアップ企業があるといわれるイスラエルのスタートアップ企業の技術、イスラエル企業と日系企業との合弁企業の事例などについて学んでまいりました。このセミナーを通じて、実際に参加者の皆さんの意見をいただきますと、実務に役立ったとか、実務に落とし込めたなど、評価をいただいておりまして、九州の企業はオープンイノベーションとデジタル技術を駆使して新事業を起こすイスラエルに対する高い関心があることが分かりました。また本年度は昨年度の内容をさらに深掘りいたしましたイスラエルイノベーションセミナーを開催し、昨年のセミナーの経験を土台としてイスラエル企業との協業を進める上での支援策、留意点、ビジネスチャンス、協業の魅力と課題などを具体例とともに紹介させていただきました。このセミナーを通じまして、九州地域の中小・中堅企業の皆さんをはじめとして、ご参加いただいた企業様から、イスラエル企業との協業による新しい事業についての可能性を感じることができたとの声を多数いただくとともにですね、イスラエル企業からの実際のお話を伺いたいとのことでございました。そしてこれまで積み重ねてきましたイスラエル事業の集大成といたしまして、このイスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッションを開催するものでございます。この中のより実際にですね、現地には行くことは構いませんでしたけれども、イスラエルにおいて事業をするための必要不可欠な現地のキーパーソンの方をですね、イスラエル大使館様からご紹介いただいておりますので、ぜひこの機会にですね、存分にイスラエルビジネスに関する知見を広めていただきまして、今後のイスラエル企業との事業展開にお役立ていただければと思っております。また、明日2日目にはですね、イスラエル企業6社の皆様との商談会も予定をしております。皆様それぞれにですね、今回のミッションの交流の実をですね、身を挙げていただければと思っております。最後になりますが、本日の新聞報道によります、先日のですね、新聞報道によりますと、2021年の日本からイスラエルの投資額はですね、過去最高のですね、約3400億円、前年2020年に比較して 2.9 倍となったとのことでございます。このイスラエルへの投資拡大は、日本のみならずですね、イスラエルのハイテク企業が調達した資金額が過去最高となっているとのことでございます。このことからいたしましてもですね、イスラエルの企業は先端ビジネスの先導者、パートナーとして注目を集めていると考えておりまして、本日、明日の2日間で大いにですね、学び、イスラエルとの連携を深めていただければですね、幸いと思っております。どうぞよろしくお願い申し上げます。それでは皆様方には有意義なミッションとなりますことを記念いたしましてご挨拶とさせていただきます。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。続きまして、本ミッションの共催者であります、駐日イスラエル大使館経済部経済公使ダニエル・コルバー様よりご挨拶申し上げます。それではよろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。こんにちは。 minasan. It's a pleasure to be here to open this two-day virtual delegation, and we have a great honor to be supporting KOIC Kyushu Open Innovation Center and coordinating this fascinating 2 days that we'll have ahead of us. So we are excited. My name is Daniel. I head the Economic and Trade Mission of Israel in Japan. We have offices in Tokyo and Osaka. And big thanks to Yuki Iguchi-san from our team in Osaka for coordinating everything. So I'd like to also extend a thanks to all the supporting organizations today that have helped us reach out to over 130 people who registered from Kyushu, from all of Japan, from Israel, from other parts of the world, and listening to the interesting contents that we'll have coming up. Also, and especially want to thank all the speakers today and tomorrow. So today we'll have our colleague from the Ministry of Economy and Industry, followed by a colleague from the Israel Innovation Authority, then the Israel-Japan Chamber of Commerce, and 5 very interesting startups, companies that will present their solutions. And tomorrow, more Israeli companies and B2B meetings, business-to-business meetings. So invite all of the viewers who have not yet signed up to meet Israeli companies to go ahead and do so and engage with the Israeli innovation ecosystem. So this is what this webinar is about. It's about open innovation, and it's about sourcing out innovation from outside Japan, and what better place to look for than in Israel. As mentioned, Japan and Israel have been strengthening their economic ties in recent years, and we are now at the peak, I believe, but the potential is still out there, and we are working to increase it and strengthen the relations even further. So in 2021, as mentioned just now, investments from Israel, from Japan to Israel reached a new record of almost $3 billion, and that's 3 times the investment previous year. So we have every reason to believe that's going to increase even further. Also through the help of events like that, giving exposure in Japan to what's happening in Israel, and with the Israeli companies presenting, creating business opportunities. So I'd like to really extend thanks to KOIC for this opportunity. And this is, as mentioned, not the first time that we collaborate together. Had a couple of seminars, and now for the first time a virtual delegation. So as if you were going to Israel, but unfortunately it's not so easy these days, but hopefully soon that will be possible. And then meet with the Israeli ecosystem. And when we talk about Kyushu, of course, there are good relations between Israel and Kyushu. We'll have some examples also of speakers during this delegation, like the Fukuoka City and Yasukawa Electric, so Kyushu-based entities who have good collaborations with Israel. And we want to deepen it even further. We want to see more collaborations for innovation-related projects, for joint R&D projects, commercialization of technology from Japan and Israel, and from Israel and Japan. Of course, we're interested in both ways. Also, consumer goods, any product that or service that we can work on together, and that will make the lives of both Japanese people and Israeli people better by collaborating and working together. Because today's challenges are global, and whether for sustainability, for health and mobility, we have global challenges. So we really need to work together to reach the best results. And this is what this is about. So I would like to take the opportunity to invite all of you to engage with us, Economic and Trade Mission of Israel in Japan. We are part of the Embassy of Israel in Japan, part of the Ministry of Economy and the Industry of Israel. part of a network of economic attaches around the world. We have 45 missions, and we are here to promote business between Israel and the countries where we are based. So we have the great pleasure of doing that exciting work here in Japan. And we'd like to invite you, those of you who are not in constant communication with us, to please do so. Please check out our website, join our newsletters. We have very exciting events coming up soon. So please join. And as mentioned before, meet the Israeli companies and explore business opportunities. So without further ado, I will return the floor to our Master of Ceremony, and I'd like to wish us all a very successful and fruitful event. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。続きましては、現地イスラエルよりのご講演です。お話しいただきますのは、イスラエル経済産業省外国貿易局アジア太平洋部マネージャートメル・シュピルマン様です。世界からイスラエルの投資状況などについてご紹介いただきます。現地は朝の9時頃でございます。おはようございます。シュピルマン様、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for having me on this event. One moment, I will share my screen. All right, do you see it? Everything is all right?
Yes.
Thank you. So, as I said, thank you for having me. My name is Tomer Shpilman. I'm from the Foreign Trade Administration at the Ministry of Economy and Industry. And I'm from the division that aims to promote Israeli exports and attracting foreign investments. I'm specifically is in charge of this mission at the Asia Pacific region. And I would like, I had the free hand to do whatever I want to talk about. So I decided to talk about the most interesting thing in the Israel and Japan relationship. And that is Japanese investments in the Israeli ecosystem. So first of all, I would like to introduce briefly what is the Foreign Trade Administration. You heard a little bit from Daniel earlier, but I will do it really briefly. We have four main goals or missions. I think the two most relevant ones are increasing and diversifying Israeli export and attracting foreign direct investments. How do we do it? We do it through almost 50 economic and trade missions around the world. The mission aims to do, actually, if I need to explain it in one sentence, they are doing macro business development for the Israeli industry. And that's include from removing regulatory or trade barriers to finding specific information or to make a market research, and all the way up to finding the right partnership between the local market, and the Israeli company that wish to expand to the relevant market. And we have two offices, as Daniel mentioned, in Japan, one based in Tokyo, the other in Osaka. And during the pandemic, we have opened two more offices. The first one is another one in my region, in Manila, in the Philippines. And the other one was established right after the signing of the Abraham Accords in the United Arab Emirates. So you can see in the map where we have our economic and trade mission. And before we dive into the investment part, I want to talk a little bit about Israel in a glance. So young country, I'll do it really fast. Young country, small country, challenging neighborhood. But although these parameters were consistently ranked in the very highest rank in the World Happiness Report. Last year we did 12. Sometimes we even considered as the most happiest or the top 3 happiest countries in the world. A week ago, the Ministry of Finance has issued the final data, economic data on 2021. And we're happy to see that the GDP growth in 2021 was 8.1%. If you look at it in comparison to the OECD's average was 5.3%, and it's one of the highest GDP growth the developed world has seen after the pandemics. If we're talking about France is 7%, United States is less than 6%, United Kingdom that show the world that even in the beginning that we can keep the borders open and keep the economic free. They did 77.5%. So we're really happy to see that in 2021, and despite all the challenges, our economic indicate that we are starting to recover from 2020, which was a very challenging year with a negative growth in our GDP. So every Israeli that presents the investment or the Israeli ecosystem using the same 2 slides. It's like the most popular slides. And those slides just indicates how the Israeli ecosystem, the government, the people, the country as a whole encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. So the first one, you can see the VC investment per capita. You can see that this is as for 2019, but you can see that Israel is by far the first. We do know that in 2021 the value is even much higher, but we still don't have any comparative data, so we're sticking with this slide. And the second one is the gross domestic spending on R&D as a percentage of GDP. Israel and South Korea are consistently sharing the first and the second place with almost 5%. And that shows you how innovation is something that we all care about and continue to spend our investment and foreign investment. Look at it as something with lots of potential in the last several years. So Israeli high-tech investments, here we're talking about Israeli and foreign investments. So as you can see, the high-tech capital raising in 2021 has reached a new record, more than $25 billion raised in 773 deals. This is 146% increase from the amount raised last year and 28 more deals comparing to 2020. On the right graph, you can see actually the gap that became bigger and bigger from the median and the average high-tech investments. So I think that there are two main reasons for that. One comes from the Israeli company's point of view. We always say that Israel is becoming from a startup nation to scale-up nation, and sometimes you can really see it when you're isolating the right and the relevant data. You can see here that the Israelis are they're no longer looking for starting a new company, making a quick exit and move on to the next challenge. You can see here that most of the companies, especially the big and the successful ones with lots of potential, they are looking to become bigger, to have a revenue. Sometimes, mostly in Asia, the investment comes after the Israeli company has expanded already to United States and to Western Europe. And afterward, you can see that when the investments came, they came in later rounds, when the investments and the deals are much, much higher. And the second one is the strategic different strategy from the investment. The investors wishing to invest in more mature companies, and not only in early stages. You can see it all over the world, but especially in Japan. We can see it later on. And the third, I think, main reason is that, as we can see in the next slide, Israel is the most dominant country in the most, I would say, growth in the biggest sectors: cyber, fintech, mobility. This will be the major sectors all over the globe in the next in the near future. And Israel has become like the main hub, the global hub for these sectors. You can see it right here. First of all, we'll do it like a quick overview. So you can see that in 2021, foreign investments surpassed all past results with a record high of $18.6 billion. This is only foreign investments, and it is 73% of all total capital raised. And that's compared to 7.4 billion, which was 72%, and 5.5 billion, which is 70% in 2020 and 2019, respectively. So you could see that it was a record year in the in foreign investments. You can see that fintech and cybersecurity enjoyed the record capital intake. We have 23 financial rounds in cybersecurity and 21 in fintech. We're talking about deals that are more than $1 million each. If we compare it to 2020, we had only 8 in cybersecurity and 5 in fintech. Another, I would say, impressive thing that we see here is that fintech is challenging the cybersecurity as the most dominant sector in Israel. I think it's a bit tricky because you need to understand exactly how to measure it, and because fintech is sometimes being confused with retail tech and with e-commerce and with everything that has to do with payments or security. So sometimes we are counting things that not only are the core cases of fintech. But it's really impressive to see that fintech and cybersecurity had an incredible year this year. And another interesting sector that became really, really relevant, especially in Asia, is the food tech. You can see that the food tech raised almost $900 million with two interesting acquisitions and deals. We had the Future Meat Technology that had an investment of $320 million, and Al Farm that making a cultural meat with more than $100 million deal. I do believe that we'll see in the next future also an incredible increase in biotech. That's for now. Israeli high-tech exit. So it was really, really special year, 2021. You can see $22 billion in 238 deals. This is really, really extraordinary. Sometimes you can confuse because you can see that the numbers in 2017 and 2019 are a bit bigger in the total amount, but it's a bit tricky because in 2017 we had the Mobileye acquisition by Intel in more than $15 billion. We had the Neurodrem bought by Mitsubishi Pharma in more than $1 billion. In 2019, we had the Havana Labs that sold also by Intel in more than $2 billion. And we had the acquisition of Google's VC of Army Security in more than $1 billion. So 2017 and 2019 is mainly about 4 major deals and not through 238 deals in a variety amounts of deals from early stages into big acquisition or big investments. And I've put it selected top investments. So you can see here that we have 11 companies that raised $4 billion with $300 million each investments. You can see here again, most of them are security or fintech. We have some agri-tech, but most of them are from the most dominant sectors, as I've mentioned. So I think that's the general overview. I see that we have not a lot of time, so we'll jump through the Israeli and Japan highlights. So last year, when we looked at the investment came from Japan and reached a really, I would say, not a record score, but it really surprised us that during the COVID-19 situation, when you cannot get investments face to face, we still reached or crossed $1 billion. And now that after seeing 2021 data, we can see that it almost tripled itself. So I think that this year is, I would say, really one of a kind. With the challenging of the social restrictions and the COVID situation, we still managed to reach almost $3 billion in Japanese investments in Israeli high-tech. I think that shows how strategic and important our partnership is. And, you know, we can see it in the last 6 or 7 years. Here I'm, you know, aiming to talk about investments, but you can also see it in trade relations. We have an 11% increase in exports of goods from Israel, and the trade relation is, you know, in a separate panel, but or a separate webinar, but they are also increasing constantly. And when, you know, we are really, really pleased to see it. So a new record of Japanese investment, as we said, and the 3 main things that we've talked about earlier is moving from small seed investments to bigger rounds. It happens all over the world, and it's happened also in the point of view of the Japanese investors. And moving, of course, moving from the Israeli point of view, from startup nation to scale-up nation is corresponded with the Japanese vision to search for open innovation. And this is why I think the Japanese investors and the Israeli high-tech industry are having a very good partnership. And considering that Japanese investors wishing to do a strategic investment, we can see the movement to more current trends that are, I would say, becoming the challenging problem of the world. And Israeli companies are looking to be, I would say, unicorns in these sectors. or even connecting to a global player. So we're talking about automation, Industry 4.0, AI, digital transformation, all the trends that we're talking about in the last 2 years because they are really booming since the pandemic came into our life. So here we're talking about overall investments versus Japanese investments. So you can see that the Japanese investment in Israel have grown by 195%, outpacing the outstanding growth of overall investments, which was, as I mentioned earlier, 146%. And the number of investments has also reached a record high of 85 investments, breaking the record of 2019 that was 70. The overall volume of Japanese investment was influenced by 3 impressive acquisitions that we'll see in the next slide. And we do think that the growth of Japanese interest in Israel technology is connected also to the impact of the US and China conflicts and the activities of Israeli startup. We do witness the trend that Israeli startups are moving toward United States and Japan and making Japan as the main source of investments and the hub for Asia Pacific activities, and not talking about investments as the gate to Asia in general. All right, examples of Japanese investment in Israel. So you can see here the most, I would say, major deals, major investments. We have in Israel today 18 VCs, Japanese VCs operate from Israel. And you can see, as I said in the previous slide, that Japanese investors are moving to the space of deep tech, which is more in the areas of hardware, life science, deep learning based solution. And this kind of categories do require a long-term partnership rather than IT or software solutions. And if I'll mention the numbers just quickly, just for the sake of and the example. IT was dominated in 2015, and with 65% of the investment, and today in 2021 it dropped to barely 13%. Other industries like automotive or life science or cybersecurity took a significant slice from the investment cake. And last but not least, examples of Japanese cooperation with R&D or innovation lab in Israel. So the last one was NTT that has opened, I think, last year. We see the most dominant and major players come to Israel to look for the Israeli innovation or Israeli great minds in R&D, mainly on software, but not also on software. And even here we can see the increasing from 15 Japanese representative in 2015 to almost 100 in 2021. So that is really major increase in the trust that Japanese global companies have in the Israeli industry. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. And if you have any more questions, you can connect me through the email. I'll be happy to assist you, the Israeli or the Japanese side. Thank you very much.
シュピルマン様、ありがとうございました。ただいま、シュピルマン様も おっしゃいましたように、何かただいまの講演に際しまして、ご質問等がございます方は、Zoom 画面下の Q&A にお願いいたします。繰り返しご案内申し上げます。ご質問等がございます方は、Zoom 画面下の Q&A にお願いいたします。はい、それではご質問1件いただきました。2020年から2021年に投資額が3倍に増えた一番の原因は何でしょうかというご質問いただきました。それではご回答よろしくお願いいたします。
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question. So I think we have lots of small reasons. First of all, I think that we are in the golden age of the economic partnership between Japan and Israel. You can see that the Japanese in investment and in buying technologies have lots of trust in the Israeli industry. But the jump from 2020 to 2021 has to do with, I would say, big investments all over the world. I think the total investment in Israel from all over the globe became higher and higher. I think we have lots of, I would call it, investment money that came due to the pandemic. We have monetary reason for that. We have social restrictions reason for that. But we see lots of people invest their money, and lots of big players invest more and more. Actually, you can see it in blockchain also, in cryptonic coins also. And I think that Israel has become more and more interested in Japan in the past years due to the open innovation strategic that your government is promoting. And because of, as I said, the conflict between the United States and China has, I would say, positioned Japan as the most relevant, interesting, and powerful country, and as a gate for Israeli technology to go through APAC region. And so I think this is the most, I would say, major reasons, but we will know about it next year when we'll see. Hopefully when the pandemic will be behind us, and we can see that how much the pandemic did infect the investment that came from Japan and came from all over the world, as I mentioned.
シュピルマン様、ご回答ありがとうございました。ご質問もう1件いただいております。コロナの影響はどれくらい、どういう分野に与えていますか。この質問にまたご回答をお願いいたします。
I didn't quite understand the first question. What impact what? Economic wise, not investment wise. All right. Thank you for the questions. So the impact was a negative growth of almost 3% in the Israeli GDP. and Israel is constantly have around 5% in, I would say, the last 10 or 15 years. So one of the reasons for that is the Israeli population increases constantly in 2% every year. So the GDP naturally increases quite fast. So to see a negative economic growth in Israel, for us, it's really something that we need to think about. So I think that the impact was in the entire Israeli industry. I think that the high-tech industry, which is around 10% of the entire Israeli industry, suffered it, a bit slightly, but we saw it all over the world. The major sector that was impacted from the pandemic, that's a good question. I think I don't think that there is a sector that was impacted the most. I think some sector had a positive, the COVID had a positive influence on their technologies, solutions, such as retail tech, such as fintech, such as cyber. Those companies, as you could see in the slides of the verticals, had an incredible year, unfortunately, but incredible year for their businesses, because the challenges that the pandemic has given us to all was relevant to the solution they're suggesting. So I think that the negative impact was in the entire industry, but some sectors such as fintech, retail tech, e-commerce, and digital health had a positive impact due to the pandemic.
ご回答ありがとうございました。それでは続きましてもう一件ご質問いただいております。日本の食品分野の中でイスラエルで欲しい食品分野はありますか？こちらのご質問にご回答をお願いいたします。
That we want to have in Israel, or that we're thinking, I didn't quite understand, sorry. Food areas that we want to bring to Israel from Japan, or food areas in food tech that are relevant in Israel to export? Could you please reply the question?
イスラエル側が欲しい食品分野ということでよろしいかと思いますのでお願いいたします。
What Israeli side want to have in the food industry, right? Yeah. So actually, I think that's not my. I'm focusing on export issues, but I think that when I'm looking into the food tech industry, I do think that we have a trend here in Israel for more healthier food, clean tech labels. Israel is becoming more and more vegan. Tel Aviv it's a vegan capital. We have, I think that there is a parameter, there's an index of vegan restaurants per capita in Tel Aviv. I think it's the highest in the world for the last 5 or 6 years. So if I need to assume what will be the next trends in food tech in Israel, would be less meat, clean label, low amount of sugar and fat, and I think that this is the major thing. I think the Japanese cuisine in Israel in general, and I say it as a Tel Avivian, have a major impact on the Israeli cuisine and on the nutrition of the Israeli citizens. We're looking for food that will be more healthy without any I would say chemicals or bad ingredients. I hope I answered the questions.
קופצים, זה לא דחוף, אז עוד מעט. עוד מעט שאני אתקשר, שאני חושב, עכשיו אני צריך להרצות בזום, למה?
Could you please mute?
はい、皆様、ご質問、ご回答ありがとうございました。改めまして、シュピルマン様、どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was really my pleasure. I hope we have good partnership and we continue the positive momentum between Israel and Japan. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。さて、ここからはイスラエルと日本の行政機関より各機関の取り組みや日本企業とイスラエル企業とのコラボレーション事例などをご紹介いただきます。まずはじめに、イスラエルよりイスラエルイノベーション庁国際協力部部長アビ・ルフトン様にご講演いただきます。それではルフトン様、よろしくお願いいたします。
ありがとうございます。Good morning here in Israel. Good afternoon in Japan. First, I would like to thank Kyushu Open Innovation Center for inviting me, and also to thank Mr. Daniel-san and Yuki-san and our team. And I'm very glad to be part of the opening event, virtual delegation to Israel for the couple 2 days. And I'll try in a short presentation to give you a background about the Israeli innovation ecosystem and also the Israel Innovation Authority. Please feel free to interrupt me and ask questions during the presentation or just after it. So let me share the slides. I hope that everyone can see it. Yeah, now it's okay. Yeah. So it's quite a short presentation that will describe what we have here in Israel in general, in terms of technology and innovation, and a bit of data and information about the Israel Innovation Authority, and just a few slides about our international collaboration, of course, including Japan. So let me start at the first slide. Okay. So just to give you a very short background about the Israel Innovation Authority, actually it does not started recently. It's more than 50 years that the Israeli government investing in technology and innovation, and the formal act done in 1971, while the government of Israel opened the Chief Scientist Office, what we call now the Israel Innovation Authority. And I will not stand on each one of the, let's say, the landmark points in the road, but we have made a lot of progress. But the DNA of investing in technology and innovation basically seeds a long time ago. And even in these days, in these recent years, we can see another I would say another point in the history of Israel technology and innovation. I can talk about this a bit later. So, by the way, this presentation prepared about 2 or 3 months ago, and the numbers are not accurate now. It even higher, but I'll try to bridge the gaps. So the high tech is very important to Israel. It's not a hobby or another vehicle in the growth engines. It's the main growth engine, and about half of the industrial export of Israel based on high tech. Every year in the recent decade, at least, it's a new record, and 2021 was a great year. And the number that you can see here, almost 18 billion, become more than 20 in the end of 2021 in terms of capital raising. The value market of Israeli companies traded in the USA is higher than 300 billion. And the accurate number of unicorns in Israel today is almost 80, 79 more exactly. Definitely we are at peak of all time, while we have about 10,000 active companies related to R&D and technology, more than 400 multinational R&D centers, including few Japanese ones. We are lacking a lot of employees. It's about 9 or 10% of our human resources that working in the high tech, and this is one of the national challenges that the Innovation Authority is trying to do and contribute efforts to bridge this gap. And a lot of, I would say, VCs and investment organizations, so the capital is really available here in Israel for good technologies and innovation. For many years, I think in the last decades, Israel invested the highest expenditure on civilian R&D as a percentage of GDP. It's number 1 in the world, almost 5%, excluding the defense and other areas of technologies. So as I said, this is not a hobby. This is the main vehicle. So we are investing in technology the most. And a bit about what maybe makes in general innovation ecosystem successful, and especially in Israel. I think most of what you can see here, what we believe is let's say the players or the components that comprise ecosystem of innovation. And I think most of these are well known, and basically all the countries today, no matter where in the globe, knowing that you need a good education, you need startups, you need funding, you need grow companies, you need to connect to the world with multinational cooperation, and you need a government. But I think 2 things may be unique in Israel. The first one is the contribution of the army, of the defense in Israel, since we are living in a very tough neighborhood, so a lot of resources invested in our defense capabilities, and a lot of these can be used dually, both in the army and in the civilian market. So this is one more resource of technology. And I think the second one is related to the culture. The interconnectivity between all the players is very fluent. And in this case, I think the fact that we are small is an advantage, since basically you can reach out to anyone no matter if you are, it's very informal. You can approach almost any person in Israel, and in this way, I believe that all of us or all the players know what are the barriers, what are the obstacles, and try to find solution together. So this interconnectivity and the good relations between all of these components are contributing to a very successful ecosystem. Now, let's talk a bit about the Israel Innovation Authority. I mentioned that the Chief Scientist Office established in 1971, and recently, about 5-6 years ago, we have done a reform, and it's called now the Israel Innovation Authority. But I believe that what is stay, no matter which decade we are now, it's the mission. And I think the mission is really long-lasting for many years, and this is promoting technological innovation to basically to leverage economic growth. So it's not for creating more education or more PhDs or more researchers, but how to translate or transform these capabilities, this research and developments to be products and to contribute to the economic growth of Israel. I think that there are three main pillars. The first one, and I will have a slide on each one of them. The first one is basically keeping what we achieved till now, is keep investing in R&D and innovative products. The second one, something that we are developing more and more in the recent years, is looking for the new technology waves in the future and try to gear up resources to those directions. And the third one, to be enablers, and meaning to remove barriers, to catalyst for innovative regulation, to help to raise more human capital to the high tech and things like that. So if we go to the first mission, very simple, is providing grants and funding for companies that would like to develop and research new products, and basically we are not competing the private sector. We are trying to complement the private sector, meaning we basically will not invest when we think that the private sector will do so. So we are focusing on market failures. Basically, we are promoting groundbreaking applied research in both academia and industry. So basically, it's keeping this is the core, and we are keep supporting all these 10,000 or so companies that dealing with R&D and the technology, and provide those incentives to them to continue and develop. The second one that I mentioned is gearing up for future technologies, meaning we are trying to look 10, 20 years ahead and think what will be the main, let's say, the main breakthrough technologies that will change all our lives, and try to take our strength and engage them with those directions. So I mentioned here 4 fields: the climate change, the bioconvergence, meaning merging biology and engineering, the quantum and AI. Some of them are part of national program for future growth. And the third one, as I said, is trying to enable activities to reduce barriers, if it's by increasing the human capital by various of programs, or adding more tools that will increase the investment of debt tool, for example, trying to enhance regulation in fields like transportation, autonomous cars, drones. So those kind of things that will make the platform or the field for the companies to develop easier and smoother their new technologies and products. Looking at some figures of the Israel Innovation Authority, really in a nutshell, so we are receiving, as you can see, in 2020, we received more than 4,000 applications for funding. It was really busy year because of the COVID-19. In 2021, it's a bit less, but it's still a few thousand. Our annual budget is about $500 million every year. We are about 140 employees and extra 180 subcontractors that are experts in. These guys are checking and evaluating each one of those thousands of applications that we receive. Our main approach is bottom up, meaning we are not leading the market. We are not saying to companies what to develop. We are not dealing with their business matters. The application that we receive coming from starting can start by a single entrepreneur and until a very large company. So all the application that we receive coming from the companies, it can be in any sector, in any field, and any size of companies. And the type of funding is something in between loans and grants, meaning we provide the funding. We never provide 100%. It will be typically 50%, and expecting matching from the company for the expenses of the project. In case the project succeeding to generate revenues, in this case and only in this case, they will pay royalties up to the loan they received. If they failed, and it can be because of technology and because of market failure, whatever, the loan become a grant. So I think it's a fair mechanism. If you are succeeding, you pay back. If you failed, it become a grant. A bit about our international collaboration. In the Innovation Authority, we have a dedicated division that deal with the globe, and you can see here a partial list of our partners. You can see here, of course, also Japan, but it's from the West and North America, South America, Europe, and Asia. Basically, we sign an R&D agreement with countries or with entities. And this is the legal platform for providing funding to companies that collaborating with their counterpart abroad. The main tools, I would say, are those that in the middle in this slide. It can be either joint project between two companies to develop a new product by a joint R&D, or it can be by pilots, meaning the product is already in the last stages of development and you need to validate it or to do a proof of concept or customize it or adapt it to a new environment, a new site. So this is what we call a pilot. The difference between them that in R&D you are not, you are sharing your IP. In pilot, no. And we are also inviting multinational corporations to work with Israeli startups and companies, and we do scouting for them, and they can engage with one or more Israeli startups. We provide the funding to the Israeli companies, and of course there are some other unique initiatives that we are doing based on opportunities that we have. The last slide is just screening to you what we are doing with NEDO along the last years since 2014. Once we signed both G2G agreement in R&D, and also an agreement between the Innovation Authority and NEDO. We also cooperating with the Research Institute ATR in Kyoto, in Kehina. What we are doing today with Fukuoka, so I hope that we will take it forward and create a platform that also provide funding. I think we can do it. We engage with the 7 Japanese corporates. You can see the names here that each one of them can collaborate. By the way, some, but also others. But if they engage, if one of those corporates engage with Israeli company and the Israeli company apply to us, we can provide funding for the joint project. And we are doing some additional activities that you can see here with OCCI, with trying to enhance collaboration with Osaka and activities like this. And we have, of course, the Gene Forum that engage all the relevant entities and persons that working on the collaboration between Israel and Japan. Arigato.
Lufton様、ありがとうございました。
If you have any question, please.
画面下の Q&A にどうぞご入力くださいませ。質問がございます方は、画面下の Q&A にご入力をお願いいたします。せっかくの機会ですが、何かご質問等ございませんでしょうか。はい、それでは、瓜生団長から手が挙がりました。ご質問をお願いできますでしょうか。
はい、これ、それ発言して聞こえてますね。大丈夫。コメントもありがとうございました。そうですね。
Yes, sure.
人材育成について、このイノベーション庁のとしては、要は日本にはですね、なかなかこういうイノベーションとかやろうとしても、それからDX もそうですけど、人の人材が非常に今足りないという思いがあるものですから、イスラエルの国の中でどのように人材育成をやられているのかなと思って、ちょっとその状況を教えていただければと思ってご質問を申し上げます。
I would like to repeat the question to make sure that I understand, okay?
要はですね、イスラエル国におけるこういうイノベーションとか、そういったのを担えるようなヒューマンリソースをどういうふうにして育て上げているのかということを教えていただければというご質問でございます。わかりますかね、質問している意図が。
How we develop research and development in general, or how we the human resources. First of all, this is something I would say that developed in the last years. If you ask me before, about 5 years ago, I would say that the Innovation Authority is not really putting resources on this. But recently, or in the last few years, we are facing that this issue become a very serious challenge, because there is not enough employees in this field, and as a result, the competition between the companies on each one of the, especially the talents, is really, it's really in the extreme, and the salaries are raised up, and it's not a healthy situation, and also companies starting to employ workers outside of Israel. So first of all, this is not the IIA alone challenge. It's a national challenge, and several, let's say, several entities in Israel joined to face this issue, like the authority that responsible for the education, the university. So they are pushing more that new students will learn science and more than it was in the past. What basically the Israel Innovation Authority is doing is asking for the relevant entities in Israel to offer their scheme or their program, how they can educate students or those that graduate but not in science to the field of high tech. And those programs that seems to the authority relevant and can contribute, receiving according each program the relevant funding. So basically, it's not something that we are saying you must do ABC. We're asking those entities that educate people to offer their suggestion how to educate students and people that are not learned science and transfer them to the field of high tech. So if the program they present is good, we provide the funding. If not, we are not. So it's not, you can say that we are providing the platform and the funding, but we are not basically in this case saying what exactly to do and how to educate the people.
はい、ありがとうございました。それでは、
Thank you. ありがとう。
ご質問、1件いただいております。他に1件いただいております。イスラエルの大学と日本の大学の連携はありますかとお尋ねがありました。ご回答お願いいたします。
Unfortunately, I can't, but I would say something. The Innovation Authority not really act and work in the level of universities, meaning collaborating between universities. But I believe there is connections, but I don't think the authority is the address for this issue.
はい、ありがとうございました。他にご質問はございませんでしょうか。はい、それではご質問の受付を終了いたします。改めまして、ルフトン様、ありがとうございました。
Arigatou gozaimasu, and I wish you all a very fruitful 2 days, and hopefully this event will lead to real engagement between companies from Israel and Japan. Good luck. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。続きまして、日本よりイノベーション庁と MOU を締結されていらっしゃいます福岡市様の福岡市グローバルスタートアップセンター中川明子様にご講演いただきます。それでは中川様、よろしくお願いいたします。
紹介ありがとうございます。福岡市グローバルスタートアップセンターの中川と申します。本日は当センターのご紹介をしながら、福岡市の海外スタートアップの支援、イスラエルとの関わりなどについてお話ししたいと思います。では画面を共有させていただきます。画面見えておりますでしょうか。
はい、見えてます。
福岡市グローバルスタートアップセンター GSC は、福岡市が海外スタートアップや起業家、海外進出を目指す福岡の企業などを支援する窓口として設置された公的な機関になります。FGN 福岡グロースネクスト内のスタートアップカフェにありまして、パートオブヤチームというモットーのもと、日本語、英語はもちろん、中国語やスペイン語でも海外起業家の方々をサポートしております。私どものサポートは多岐にわたっております。福岡市が全国でも一番に採用した海外起業家向けのスタートアップビザの申請窓口としての役割、また彼らが入国した後の住居やオフィス探しの不動産関係や法人設立のサポート、さらにはビジネスを始めるために必要な銀行口座も私たちが事前に銀行に連絡を入れ、同行し、開設までのプロセスを積極的にサポートしています。事業を始めた後も毎月ミーティングを行って必要に応じた支援を提供しています。私たちのサービスの特にユニークな点は、私たちのビジネスマッチングです。どのステージのスタートアップであっても対象となります。海外スタートアップのニーズをヒアリングし、それをもとにグローバルスタートアップセンターのネットワークにある企業やスタートアップ、公的機関等に対し、両者にとって最大限のメリット、シナジーが引き出せるようなプロジェクトの提案をするマッチングを行っています。このビジネスマッチングのサービスは、日本進出前の海外のスタートアップに対しても行っております。次になぜ福岡でビジネスを始めるのが良いのかという点について、福岡の魅力をリストアップしてみました。まず1つ目に低い災害リスク、2つ目に地理的優位性、そして既存のスタートアップエコシステム、最後に生活の質、クオリティオブライフという点が挙げられるかと思います。まず1つ目に関しまして、福岡は他の大都市、東京であったりとか大阪と違って、日本海側に面していて地震などが少ないという地理的な安全性が高いです。で、大企業もデータセンターを福岡に置いています。で、2つ目は、福岡でビジネスを始めることで、日本市場のみならず地理的にも近い台湾、韓国、中国といった他のアジア市場にもビジネスを拡大することができます。福岡、東京間の約2時間のフライトで、ソウルはもちろん台北や上海へ行けるのは大きなメリットです。で、3つ目、福岡市は2012年にスタートアップ都市宣言を行ってから今日までスタートアップ支援の取り組みを続けており、すでにスタートアップエコシステムが出来上がっております。また、福岡市は実証実験フルサポート事業などもあり、スタートアップをサポートする体制が整っています。最後に生活の質が高いという点について、福岡は家賃を含む物価が他の都市に比べると低い上に、コンパクトで住みよい都市です。街もコミュニティもコンパクトなので、新しくビジネスを始める際のネットワークを作るのにはとても適していると思われます。また、福岡市は5キロ圏内に市のメイン機能が集約されており、空港から街中までは地下鉄でわずか10分となります。また、すぐにビーチに行けるのも福岡の魅力の一つです。このようなコンパクトシティは、世界でも珍しいのかなと思います。福岡市は海外11カ国15拠点とスタートアップ支援の覚書を結んでおります。双方の連携機関がスタートアップの発展のために情報交換やサポートを相互で支援を行うというものです。ちょうど私の前にプレゼン 提唱してくださったアビさんのイスラエル投資庁 IIA も連携先の一つです。IIA は連携先の中でも一番新しい機関で、2019年11月に現地のテルアビブに高島市長が赴き、覚書 MOU を結んでいます。私たちの関係が構築されてから今までの約2年間の間で、どのような実績ができたのかいくつかご紹介したいと思います。アグローイングというイスラエルのスタートアップなんですが、このスタートアップはドローンを活用したアグリテックスタートアップで独自のカメラセンサーを開発しています。センサーを内蔵した特殊カメラをドローンに装着し、地上の精密な映像を撮影し、農作物の状態を分析することを可能にします。彼らは独自開発のカメラを日本でも販売したいという意図があったため、グローバルスタートアップセンターが日本全国のドローン関連と幅広いネットワークを持つ福岡市内のスタートアップトルビゾンとパートナー協業を提案しました。トルビゾンにとっても今後海外展開をする上で海外パートナーの存在は必要になるという双方のメリットをこちらから提案し、継続的競合を模索していくということで LOI の締結に至りました。これは2019年11月に IIA と覚書を結んでわずか2ヶ月足らずの間で最初のコラボレーションを支援することができました。次のケースはタップキットという水耕栽培の生産性を高めるハードウェアを開発しているアグリテックスタートアップになります。このスタートアップは日本の NTT グループで初めてできたアグリテック企業にご紹介し、そのスタートアップがこちらのタップキットに興味を示したことから、最初のミーティングから NDA 締結までグローバルスタートアップセンターがイスラエルのタップキット側に綿密なコミュニケーションのサポートを行いました。このように GSC は福岡市以外にもネットワークを持っており、シナジーがあると判断した場合は福岡のみならず全国の企業とつなぐことができます。また2021年1月にはちょうど昨年ですね、IIA と初めてオンラインイベントを行いました。イスラエルのスタートアップ4社がオンラインでピッチを行って GSC が日本市場進出の際に必要となり得る点をクリアにするためのフィードバックを行い、イベント後に日本企業とマッチングを行うというオンラインイベントでした。100人以上の事前登録があり、約70名にご参加いただき、イスラエルスタートアップへの興味の高さを感じたイベントでした。でそのオンラインイベントでピッチを行った1社、キッチンロボティクスは、大阪に本社を置く産業資材を中心とする総合商社と現在、協業に向けた NDA 締結について協議を重ねています。このスタートアップはシェフに代わりロボットが調理を行うという料理ロボットを開発していて、すでにプロトタイプがマイアミにあります。商社の強みを生かし、日本国内での販売代理店としてなど、さまざまな角度から協業を検討されています。本件はグローバルスタートアップセンターが商社のニーズをヒアリングして、GSC の海外スタートアップネットワークからビジネスマッチングを行った例になります。今回はイスラエルとつながりがあるケースをいくつか紹介しておりますが、私たちはこのようなビジネスマッチングを他地域のスタートアップとも数多く行っております。最後に少し宣伝させていただきたいんですが、来週の月曜日、ちょうど今と同じ17時ぐらいですね、2月28日17時より IIA とオンラインイベントを行う予定です。事前登録が必要となりますので、こちら QR コードより登録いただけると幸いです。先ほどご紹介したオンラインイベントの第2回目で、今回は JR 九州が運営するコワーキングスペース Q から、ゲストを迎え、イスラエルのスタートアップ4社がピッチを行って、Q との JR 九州との協業の可能性などについてディスカッションを行う予定です。グローバルスタートアップセンターの取り組みをご覧いただける機会にもなりますので、お時間がよろしければぜひご参加いただければと思います。グローバルスタートアップセンターは福岡でビジネスをサクッと始めるサポートを行っております。新規事業の一環で海外スタートアップとつながりたい方や、日本進出に興味があるという方々はお気軽にご連絡いただければと思います。ご視聴ありがとうございます。ご清聴ありがとうございます。
中川様、ありがとうございました。それではただいまの中川様のお話にご質問等がございます方は、 画面下の Q&A にご入力をお願いいたします。
שואלת, רגע, חכה. למה אני...
ご質問等ございませんでしょうか。Q&A にご入力をお願いいたします。はい、それでは特にないようですので、改めまして中川様、ありがとうございました。では、ここからはイスラエルよりイスラエル日本商工会議所会長でワイス・ポラット法律事務所のマネージングパートナーであるジーブ・ワイス弁護士よりイスラエル日本商工会議所と会員企業様5社をご紹介いただきます。それではワイス様、よろしくお願いいたします。
Hello? אז מתי אתה תעשה את זה? מה? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
はい、聞こえております。続けてください。お願いします。
Hello. So, hold on. I would like just to see you. We okay. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Konnichiwa. My name is Zeev Weiss, and I'm a lawyer who is Weiss Porat, and the founder of this law firm. And I'm chairman of Israel-Japan Chamber of Commerce and Friendship Society. And since I don't see you on the screen, I would appreciate if you would just give me a sign that you hear me and you see me. Yuki, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you and see you.
Oh, okay, so I'm very happy. So first of all, let me thank the Kyushu Innovation Center for and the Israeli Economic Attaché Bureau at the Israeli Embassy, Daniel Kolbar and son and Yuki-san, for arranging this important webinar. Before I tell you about my Japanese experience and about the Chamber of Commerce, I want to tell you how excited I am specifically in participating in the in a Kyushu webinar. In a Kyushu webinar, because you know, I as with my experience and as the chairman, I'm always preaching about bringing into contact and joint venture with Israeli companies, not only the big Japanese companies, the multinationals, who are here and we see them and we help them and we support them. But I would like to see, and I always said it, I would like to see more SMEs coming from the periphery of Japan and not necessarily the very big companies. And I am lucky to share with you my experience of personal experience of that this is doable and can be done. One of our firm clients, very appreciated clients, is a company by the name of JTech from Oita in Kyushu. This is not a giant company, but in the last few years, it managed to establish relations with the Israeli ecosystem. And first they did it with a company by the name of Vidisco, who develops digital X-rays for the building industry and others. And lately, they established a relationship with Ora Air, an Israeli company that developed technology to purify the air, especially necessary in this pandemic time. And JTech became the sole distributor and the representative and partner of Ora Air in Japan. So this is an example why I have a deep spot for Kyushu. And whenever I come to Japan, and I come frequently to Japan, I try whenever possible to fly to Kyushu and spend some time in your beautiful island. Now, let's go back to myself, and let me tell you that I'm a Bengoshi, and as a Bengoshi, I work with Japan for many years, almost 30 years, traveling to Japan, visiting Japanese companies, hosting Japanese companies here in Israel, and representing them also as a Bengoshi. What I saw in the last 4 or 5 years is really dramatic. The change in the relationship between Japan and Israel cannot be described less as a dramatic change which leads or led us to a honeymoon in the relationship. This means that so many Japanese companies are interested in Israel, investing in Israel, doing business in Israel, looking for collaboration with Israel, buying from Israel, selling to Israel, having joint ventures. I don't want to go into the statistics because the previous speakers dealt with it, and justifiably, because the statistics speaks for themselves. I just want to tell you more about our work in the chamber and what we see when we work in the chamber. And the work of the chamber is being done, as you can see in the slide before you, by very devoted members and by our new general manager, Sigal Stiglitz-Varonel, who will have a chance to present herself later. So our chamber is really unique because taking into consideration the fact that Israel and Japan are, when you work together, you don't need just to do business, but doing business is also to come over cultural gaps and to understand each other's culture. So our chamber is a non-profit organization, and it consists both of the Chamber of Commerce, in which promotes bilateral commercial relationship between Japanese companies and Israeli companies, and at the same time, it is a friendship society which spreads the Japanese culture in Israel and try to bring Israeli culture to Japan. Maybe later you'll see some pictures which will give you an indication of the work we specifically do. Our chamber is really, I would say, the only and main platform in which the two business communities meet and cooperate. And we are, our members consist of all fields of activity in the Israeli industry, both high-tech, of course, consumers, infrastructure, you name it. And we have among our members leading figures, big and small companies in the Israeli ecosystem. And at the same time, we have now Japanese companies, members in the chamber. And when I speak about Japanese companies, I speak about the new phenomena of so many Japanese companies installing themselves in Israel now, both as either as subsidiaries of the Japanese companies or as branches. And these companies are really very welcome to become members of the chamber, and by that getting access to the other members and to a lot of information. We don't work in a void, of course. What we do is we collaborate strongly with all the organizations that government organization and public organization that work in Japan, both in Israel and in Japan. If you see here on the slide, you see that some of the names, of course, the Israeli Embassy in Japan, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are very close contact with our ambassador in Japan, Ministry of Industry, Trade and Labor. We have strong connections with the Export Institute. And at the same time, we have also a relationship with parallel Japanese companies in a unique organization that was established, in which we are one of the main pillars, and I'll come to that very soon. Now, what do we do? If you look at it, in normal times, we host many of Japanese companies who come to Israel. We provide information, either specific information, create contacts, or general information by our newsletter that is coming out each month, and you are invited, all of you, to write to us and make sure you will become subscribed to our newsletter. We lobby for you, Japanese companies in Israel. regarding visas and regarding staying in Israel and regarding all the difficulties that you encounter when you come to work in a foreign country. And we, in general, provide you with a platform to access to your counterparts in Israel. In regular time, we are dispatching delegations to Japan of Israeli companies, and also making sure that the Israeli government will, take stronger presence in the relationship between the two countries, because we recognize the importance of the government being involved. What I would add is, I referred basically before that to GIN, which is Japan-Israel Innovation Network. And as you can see that together with us as members, we have JETRO and NEDO and METI and Keidan Ren and Keizo Duyukai. And so all these Japanese organizations are our friends and members in GIN, and we have direct access to them, in which we either receive information or provide information, and we can help even you with our venues or with our direct contact with these organizations. I just give you some pictures to give you an idea of what we did. Each year we have an event in which we distribute excellent prizes to Israeli companies who did it big in Japan in the last year. Of course, we couldn't do it during the 2 years of pandemic. This is an event that was done just before the pandemic broke up. And you will see here the Japanese ambassador to Israel. You see here one of the Israeli ministers, a minister of science. You see here our board member, Mr. Schnitzer, who is in charge of the ceremony or the event, and of course myself. Here you see an additional activity in which we are very involved, and this is in webinars. And we, on the left side of the screen or your right side of the screen, you see our ambassador in Japan, and you see that we participated in a webinar between Israel, Japan, and the Emirates, which we find very important. And last but not least, you can see our involvement in the cultural aspects. Sakura in Israel is already here. Our weather is hotter, so Sakura came out. And just last week, Sigal, the general manager, organized a very beautiful event in Jerusalem at the Botanic Garden, in which we gave presentations and information about Japan culture. In general, this is what I wanted to share with you. Of course, as I said at the beginning, the present relationship is an exciting, between Japan and Israel is an exciting experience. There's so much yet to do for the big companies and the small companies. There's to do in the high-tech sphere, in the infrastructure sphere, and so on, and in so many ways. There are things we still need to do, like renewing the direct flights, which almost started before the pandemic. and we need to deepen the relationship between our two countries. So I think that if you have any questions, of course, I'm here to answer. If you would like to write to us, we'll be pleased to answer. Before I hand over the microphone to our selected 5 startups from Israel, different stages of startup, but 5 startups which we picked for this event, which gives you the variety of the Israeli ecosystem in technology. Before that, I would like to ask Sigal just to present herself, and then give me back the mic, and I'll speak about the Israeli companies. So, arigato gozaimasu, and talk to you soon. Sigal?
Yes, hello, good morning, everybody. For us, it's good morning. For you, good afternoon. I just would like, I'm sorry, I cannot start the video somehow, Yuki-san. Anyway, we do have great, yes, good morning. So we do have with us 5 fabulous companies, and I will give them the time to present themselves, and have a good luck for all of us. And I hope that we'll have a fruitful day, and very interesting for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Sigal, and both Sigal and myself are looking forward to you to keep the promise of a delegation to Israel. We hear that Japan is going to ease the restrictions of coming into Japan in March. We look forward to it. We want it to happen, and but we can tell you that there are no restrictions on Japanese business people and tourists coming to Israel these days. So please come and look at us as your first address in Israel. Okay, now let's go to the, I'm trying to close my presentation so you can see me. Hold on for a second. Okay, thank you. So our first, out of the 5 companies, the first company that we would like to enable it to do a presentation for you is Urban Aeronautics. Urban Aeronautics is, as they define themselves, and they will do better, revolutionizing the future of urban air mobility. And if you talk about mobility, it's of course, Israel is the right place. So Urban, would you please proceed and give your presentation?
Thank you, Zeev and Sigal, and good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Great. So welcome everyone to the show. It's an honor to be here. We are Urban Aeronautics. We're a company about 15 years old here in Israel, which was established by one of the founding members of Israel Aerospace Engineers. His name was Dr. Rafi Yoeli, and his dream back in 2003, when we started the company, was an urban aircraft that will help people fly around cities. Fast forward a few years, we're now flying with prototypes, and I'll show you how we've progressed, and we are ready to revolutionize transportation in cities as you know it. And this is a very exciting and upcoming industry for aviation. Okay. So we all know that cities are very congested. The two dimensions of streets and public transportation are almost at the full capacity, and it's very hard to add more infrastructure and very costly for cities to add infrastructure for cities. We bring the solution, a rooftop to rooftop city transportation vehicle. This is our City Hawk with dual ducted fans, with a passenger of 4 passengers and a pilot. You can see the controlling vanes on the top, and on the bottom of the fence, you can see the size next to the people. This is about the size of a small truck. Very efficient and slow, very ergonomic plan for passengers and a pilot. And this is what we dream and bring the reality to be flying in cities. So, as I mentioned, it is going to fly at about 130 knots or over 200 kilometers per hour. It's going to be certified very similar to a helicopter, and it can handle very difficult weather, and it's going to be very quiet, 70 dBAs. It is lower than the street level noise, and a very small form factor, 2.5 meters by 7.5 meters long as a small truck. This market is projected to boom by 2040 with tens of thousands of vehicles or aircraft vehicles are planned to fly, and this is gaining very strong momentum from governments from the European nations, and the US are pushing this industry with legislation and a lot of funding. And even in Japan, we see some of the Japan Airlines and other commercial companies starting to operate and operate in this industry. Our unique use case, our unique design for a dual ducted fan, which you see here on the left, is very different than a lot of the different up and coming aviation solutions. This is because we are planning to fly within cities. Not from city to city, but within cities where infrastructure is costly and real estate is scarce, and the location, the small footprint, and the safety of contained rotos, like you see, we don't have any exposed rotos, and they're all within the body, create very small and effective, efficient operation of flying and landing, but also very safe and very quiet. And this we feel and we see will be a very high passenger footprint rate for the footprint that it will take on the ground, very small parking space and cost of operation. And we are, today we're flying with electric hybrid, and we're planning to go with electric hydrogen, and we're working with partners on that already. As you can see, within small video, when you compare to other solutions with large wingspan, big propellers, we can fit almost 4 vehicles where you can park just one of the competing eVTOLs, electric vertical and takeoffs, or helicopters. And we're just going to be a more focused, dedicated, safe vehicle for city environments. This is not just for transporting people. This vehicle can also help introduce emerging advanced medical services. You can land in the middle of the street next to an accident or a cardiac arrest and save time for ambulances. We did a study with Paris, which will publish soon, and this will save more than 3 to 5 minutes on half of the cases just for cardiac arrest, and every minute accounts for saving lives eventually within cities. And this is going to be the introduction to cities of such new aviation or transportation solution. We are flying today here in Israel in Megiddo Airfield. This is our tech demonstrator. You can see the size. It's about 1 ton, 1 metric ton, and length of about 7 meters. We're flying autonomously today without a pilot. Some of the use cases are without a pilot as well. We fly under the regulation of the Israeli Aviation Authority and conducted over 300 test flights already. Our design, as I discussed, we have 2 propellers, front and back, a lot of electronics to simplify the piloting. Flying into cities is very dense and complex. We need to make it easier for pilots to qualify and then maintain the capabilities to fly this vehicle. This is our amazing team, and Dr. Yoeli here on the center as our founder. We have strong partnerships mainly for the components, with Safran, with the engines, and High Point with hydrogen. Universal Avionics is an Israeli-based company from Elbit. Certification with Canada, and we already have emergency medical services pre-ordered from New York City with Atola Air. We plan to launch our aircraft deliveries by 2026. We are now in funding mode and raising our engineering to be able to achieve aircraft delivery by 26, and we plan the hydrogen version to be ready by 2030. And this is why we are today at a phase where we're raising funds and looking for partnerships, and we think that both of those funds and partnerships for the industrialization and many of the components of the aircraft we can find within Japan, and we're very happy to talk to you about it. And this is all I have. Happy to be here and accept your questions, please.
Thank you, Aran. I doubt to think that still your solution would not help with direct flights between Tokyo and Tel Aviv. Am I correct?
Right. We're looking for in cities, 25, 30 miles, right? This is the range.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Aran. If anybody has any question to Aran, you can ask now, and if not, we can leave it to the end of the presentations of the companies. So whatever you prefer to do. And what I will do is, since I don't see a question coming up now, I will turn to our next candidate, which is a company, also a member of our chamber, an Israeli startup that is the name, which carries the name Simotiv. And of course, when you hear Sai in Israel, of course, it has to do with cyber. And this company is combining Israeli cyber innovation with automotive engineering. And I'll ask Michael, please, to tell us about Simotiv.
Hello, everyone. So we are going from urban air mobility to smart mobility cybersecurity. Thank you, Zeev, for introduction. And thank you, Haran, for introduction about your company. And 1 second, please. I hope you see my screen. So by 2025, you see my screen, correct?
We see it, yes.
Great.
No, we don't see your sharing screen. You're talking about the presentation. We don't see it.
Second, please.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yes, it's okay.
Oh. So by 2025, forecast predicts that there will be more than 400 million connected vehicles on the roads. Automotive companies want to digitize their businesses in terms of data, connectivity, personalization to gain numerous benefits such as productivity and observability. The target is the vehicles will perform as personal mobile devices, monetized features like personalized driving modes on holiday or weekends, where you boost your vehicle power, for example, or personalized consuming, where your vehicle meets you at the airport and orders the food you like that will wait you once you arrive your home. All it will become our daily routine. It will require frequent remote updates where additional features are added or bugs are fixed. The technological evolution brings its complexity and questions that will require solution. The vehicle manufacturers now need to manage big data, handle privacy questions, cooperate in smart mobility infrastructure, all this ensuring public trust and following new regulations and standards. This technological evolution naturally expanding attack surfaces, increasing the number of vulnerabilities and techniques that they are likely to be used by attackers to compromise a vehicle or the entire vehicle fleet. Cymotive value proposition provide holistic security solution covering the whole digital ecosystem of a vehicle, involving various processes at every stage of the vehicle lifecycle, including an ecosystem and connectivity elements. The solutions from the development through the production until the post-production phases with the perspective of the digital transformation. Founded in 2016, Cymotive Technologies built its portfolio based on vehicle cybersecurity best practices to obtain vehicle cybersecurity, resilience, and trust, and on regulatory requirements and regulations specifying measures that companies must implement to receive vehicle type approval with regard to cybersecurity. Cymotive has a proven delivery record of different software solutions in cybersecurity field with several vehicles manufacturers and tier ones running in more than 1 million vehicles all over the world, including embedded, cloud, and connectivity system. Cymotive works closely with OEMs, tier ones, and third-party software developers to ensure high-quality security product. The company security engineering services covers the entire vehicle development process, in-vehicle, the automotive cloud, on-demand content services, and the rest of the automotive ecosystem. It starts with risk analysis on the initial design phases, following building the security architecture, taking automotive constraints into account. The V-model approach continues with technical review of the security concept and adopting to the implementation reality, validation of the security requirements by security testing, and penetration testing, which is targeting to identify faulty implementation of missing requirements right before the start of production phase. The security by design approach based on V-model provides comprehensive cybersecurity solution to our customers. Cymotive automotive detection, analysis, and response system provides an end-to-end solution for detecting and mitigating cyber attacks. The intrusion detection and reaction system located in strategic vehicle ECUs that monitor security violations in real time based on configurable rules and algorithms. All collected data is transferred to Cymotive Automotive Cloud for further analysis and forensics. A full fleet-wide view crafted is using different type of tools by our cybersecurity analysts. Once a malicious behavior is detected, a response can be sent through our bidirectional infrastructure to mitigate the risk. The system has proven itself on hundreds of thousands of vehicles all over the world. And the new regulation requirements are developed to better define cybersecurity processes and cybersecurity risk management. Cymotive is an active member of the automotive cybersecurity committees and well familiar with automotive cybersecurity standards. Company built its cybersecurity governance portfolio to provide strategic consultancy services to deal with automotive cyber risk and pass the related audits. Company has a dedicated product to map and manage vulnerabilities from the fleet level to the level of the individual ECUs, hardware components, and software packages, measuring overall security and business implication to identify and maintain the risks. The purple approach is a Cymotive approach to problem solving. Combine offensive security from our red team, attackers, and development of the security products by our blue team, defenders. By attacking to identify risk and vulnerabilities from the red side and protecting by implementing security controls from the blue side, Cymotive is formulating ideal end-to-end solution and methodologies to ensure that every security challenge is tackled with a comprehensive and systematic manner. This unique combination of opposite perspective and techniques has proven itself as the most effective in dealing with challenges in the cybersecurity ecosystem, and that gives Cymotive an undeniable edge in race towards a mobility, cyber-safe environment. Only through a holistic and end-to-end security approach, the vehicle manufacturers and its suppliers will meet the challenge to properly protect the field of smart mobility. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Of course, you know, talking about cybersecurity and Israel is, you know, almost identical in certain, you know, sections of the industry, because Israeli cyber security industry is very, very developed. What is very interesting about it is that Cymotive is dealing with the, you know, mobility or with the vehicle industry. And what is interesting is that Israel does not have altogether no vehicle industry. So in this country, in our country, in Israel, where no vehicle industry exists, still the cybersecurity, and not only navigation and other aspects of so necessary for the vehicle industry, developed here to an amazing extent. So again, if anybody has any questions for Michael regarding Cymotive, this is the opportunity. Again, as I said, or at the end, or of course, you will be shared the information of the company, and then you can approach them or each one of them separately. So, Michael, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you,
Zeev. And now we will present to you.
Excuse me, Zeev-san. You've got one question in Japanese. So
Okay.
can you check the question here? それに司会者の方、お願いしてもよろしいでしょうか。
So since last year, our solution is running on around 500,000 of vehicles. We still don't have a dedicated solution in Japan, but we have part of our solution running in China with dedicated in-vehicle connectivity and cloud solution. But definitely we have also a solution running in Europe and North America.
Okay. Thank you again, Michael. And really, it's time that it will be in Japan as well, of course. Okay. I know that you share our wish that it will happen soon. Okay, now we come to the next company, which is even a more mature company. And the name of the company is JFrog. And as they describe, their mission is to transform the way enterprises manage and release software updates. Probably, I hope I didn't misconceive the purpose of the company, but we'll have here Zeev. I believe, we have here Tanaka-san. And hi, Tanaka-san.
Hello.
Hello. So Tanaka-san, I don't know, you have two choices, either to speak English or Japanese, but I think that since your audience is basically Japanese, you would rather speak Japanese. And please proceed.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I consulted whether I'm going to talk in Japanese or English. I can do both, but in this particular case, let me talk through Japanese. But any questions you can ask in English, and I can answer now directly back in English. So, dual channel. All right, so let me switch to my presentation. Can you see it? I hope you can see my presentation.
We see it.
Okay, thank you. それではここからですね、10分間ぐらいいただきまして、JFrog という会社について簡単にご紹介させていただきます。私はですね、JFrog Japan の田中と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。はい。JFrog という会社、まだまだイスラエルの会社なんですけれども、日本に入りまして3年ということで、ご存知ない方も多いと思いますので、簡単にご紹介したいと思います。ですね、JFrog という会社は2008年にイスラエルで創業されています。それから14年間、ただひたすらにですね、DevOps、今日ではセキュリティが真ん中に入ってですね、DevSecOps という、開発環境の技術を開発し提供する会社でございます。この冒頭にナスダックフログと書いてございますが、嬉しいことにですね、ようやく昨年の9月15日に、米国のナスダックに上場いたしまして、まだまだスタートアップでございますが、これからグローバル展開をしようとしている会社でございます。どんな製品をということなんですけども、もう少し詳しい話はこの後お話ししますが、基本的にはですね、ソフトウェアを開発するプラットフォーム、開発者の方の使うツールを売っている会社でございます。それでですね、今までですと、自己のデータセンターに、オンプレミスを、きちんとインストールしてということですが、昨今はもうハイブリッドが主流でございますので、ハイブリッドでもお使いになります。ですから、キーを取得していただいて、アクセスすれば、オンラインである限り、どこでもすぐに使えるということでございます。ですね、現在、顧客数は6000人です。まだまだ多いとは言えないんですけれども、この6000人の中が、非常に大きなお客さん多くございます。フォーチュンの 78% のお客様が、弊社 JFrog の開発プラットフォームをお使いになってソフトウェアを日々、開発しておられます。ですね、こちらの、最後の市場規模については、50ビリオンですね。日本円ですと5兆8000億円ということで、今後、 もっともっと DX が進み、日本の開発も DX が進んでいけば、広がっていかざるを得ないという市場になっております。で、どんな会社さんが使っていますかということで、6000社の内訳なんですが、非常に、嬉しい結果が出ています。ヘルスケア、それから金融、リテール、テクノロジー、それからテレコム通信関係、ほぼグローバルトップ10のうち7社から、多い場合はすべてのお客様が、弊社の J フロックのプラットフォームをお使いになってソフトウェアを開発しておられます。さて、どんな、ミッションを持っている会社かということで、先ほど少しお話がありましたけども、英語で言うと、To power a world of continuous updated versionless software. We call it leakage software ということなんですけども、日本語で言いますと、もう継続的に、とにかく、何ヶ月ごとではなしに、何時間おきに、小さなソフトウェアをアップデートし続けて、バージョン管理ではなくてバイナリで管理をしていくと。こういった、開発の手法をリキッドソフトウェアと呼んで、我々のビジョンとしております。さて、ちょっと視点を変えましょう。ちょっとマーケット、皆様ご存知だと思いますし、先ほど、自動運転の世界とかありましたけれども、現在、我々の国によらず、もう我々の世界ですね、ソフトウェアなしには生活が成り立ちません。まず、デジタルトランスフォーメーションですね、DX。この言葉を聞かない日はないということです。ただですね、日本の状況は、諸外国とかなり違います。諸外国の場合は、もうこのデジタルトランスフォーメーションが当たり前で進んでいるというのが前提です。ほとんどの会社がそうです。ただ日本の場合は、8割の会社がまだ DX 化に、できていません。ほんの2割弱の会社がDX 化ができているということで、そういった関係もございまして、2018年に経産省の方で2025年の崖という白書が出まして、専門の部署が経団連、その他日本の大手企業と古くなったソフトウェアの開発方法をなんとか DX 化しようということで活動されています。そしてですね、この DX を後押ししているのがこういった新技術の台頭です。IoT 化をされ、そして AI が後ろで動き、通信においては最終的にはこのスマートフォン以外の先ほど出た自動運転の車とかスマートシティの基盤になるようなものがどんどん出てきております。ただし、新しい技術が出てくれば、まだ今日我々が知らない、また未知のセキュリティリスクがどんどん出てきます。ですから、新しいものができる、便利になるという反対に、もっともっとある意味恐ろしいセキュリティが我々の生活を脅かすということは十分に考えられます。そしてですね、ここ2年ですね、皮肉なことに非常に厄介な COVID-19 オミクロンではございますが、日本でいうと働き方改革がこれだけ加速された時間もなかったと思います。ほとんどの人がリモートで仕事をし、リモートで生活をするということでございますが、その拡大するサービス需要を、担保し続けてソフトウェアをアップデートしたり、新しいサービスを作るエンジニアが足りていません。先ほどの経産省のお話では、もうすでに50万人以上の必要なソフトウェアエンジニアがいないということです。これは年々もっともっと顕著になります。したがって、世界から遅れている日本、新しい技術が入ってくる。それに対応するリソースがいないということで、本当に日本は日々の生活、ソフトウェアを使っているだけではわからないんですけれども、供給する側、裏側では非常に深刻な状況になっています。例えて、見ましたけれども、ほとんどの会社、日本の現状は、実際ソフトウェアの裏側はこんな感じです。20年前、下手をすれば20年から30年前のソフトウェアに付け足しでやっていって、新しい技術を入れようとしても何がどうなっているかわからないということがあります。非常に驚いたエピソードとしては、これはちょっと名前が言えない大手さんなんですけど、コボルという 非常に古い言語を理解できるエンジニアの方を採用していらっしゃいます。それはですね、コボルというもので書かれたものがこうした昔のシステムの中にあって、現代の新しい技術者ではわからないからですね。いまだにそういうところあるので、先ほど言いました2025年の崖という、イニシアティブが日本を推しているという状況です。一方ですね、勝ち組と言われる企業がございます。これは世界においても日本においてもあるわけですけれども、その状況を対比してみると、これはスマートロジスティックスですね、完全自動化された、倉庫というか発送センターになるんですが、ほとんど人がいません。ほとんど機械がやっています。それの調整と監視だけを人間がやって、これによって例えば、Amazon で朝、購入したものが会社から帰ってきたら夕方には届くということが当たり前になっているということです。これはあくまでも写真のイメージとして出したんですけれども、こういった、先ほどの絵と、このスマートファクトリーですね、の、革新を図ろうというのが我々 J フロックでございます。さて、改めまして、皆さんに、お客さんに聞いてるんですが、皆さんにもちょっと5つ大事な質問をさせてください。まずですね、御社にとって、自社のビジネスにとってソフトウェアが不可欠な資産ですか、ツールとなっていますか。おそらく、ノーと言えるところは少ないと思います。例えば楽天さんとか、それ自体がビジネスのツールであるというところばかりではないんですけれども、B2C であり B2B であれ、リモート化でソフトウェアなしが止まったら仕事ができないというところがほとんどじゃないかと思います。2つ目、そうしたソフトウェアですね、実際にアップデートをされる、新しく開発されるのにどれぐらいの時間をかけていますかということですね。本当に GAFA とかああいうところでですね、1時間にソフトウェアを2本も3本もアップデートするだけの力があるんです。そこまでいかなくても、日本でも週に1回、できるかなということを思ったんですけれども、遅れている日本ですね、まだまだ2ヶ月、3ヶ月にようやく、アップデートが一つできるというようなことだそうです。それにはそのペースでは全然競合に勝っていくことはできません。ここも素早くソフトウェアの開発ができていないというのはリスクになります。それから、リスクということにおいては、先ほどお話をしましたセキュリティですね。万全なんて言えるところはないんですけれども、日本はとにかく、後手後手です。何かが起こったときに考えをうちは大丈夫というところがほとんどです。それによって年間何社かですかね、金融機関とか、情報漏洩とかで、会社のトップの方が、テレビで、謝罪されるということも、今後どんどん増えていきますし、ああいった形で露見していないことも非常に多いと思います。こういうことも含めて、改めてソフトウェアの DX の開発については、セキュリティをより万全にするという取り組みが必要です。それから、先ほどの未知のサイバーリスクが出てきたときですね、今まで、遭遇したことのないようなものに、自社のソフトウェアサービスが侵されたときに、前日の素早い対応ができる、アップデートができるというところは、すぐに対応できるんですけれども、そこから数週間、数ヶ月というところは、本当にお客様のイメージも悪くなりますし、あるいはデータが流出し続けますし、場合によってはサービスをその期間止めなきゃいけないということでおいては、非常にクリティカルな問題になります。場合によってはそれで、会社の業績が下がっていくということもございます。そして、海外の会社も含めて、いわゆるソフトウェアがどれだけ使えるかというところが、今後、業界を問わず、会社を問わず、成功と失敗を分けていくんだろうと、我々は思っております。
Thank you.
はい。I'm talking too long?
Please, yes, we are exceeding our time.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, okay, let me go
Please.
quickly. Yes.
Please
So,
conclude.
はい。こちらがですね、JFrog の、プラットフォームです。こちらの方は、ウェブサイトを見ていただければわかるんですけれども、詳しいお話については、ぜひともちょっとご連絡いただいて、たくさんのお客様に日々見せておりますので、ご検討いただければと思います。すいません。10分のつもりでたくさんいつもちょっと喋りすぎてしまいますので、I'm sorry, I talked too much and I ran out of time. My apology.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanaka-san. I didn't understand everything you said in Japanese, but I liked very much the music of what you said, and I'm sure JFrog has a big future in Japan. Okay, so now if there are any questions, in this case it's very easy because Tanaka-san can communicate with you in Japanese and he's in Japan. So let's if you have any question, you can chat to us and we will proceed in the meantime to our next company. And the next company is called Cyborg. And they improve your electronic products reliability and material sourcing using inline artificial intelligence component inspection software. This means, in other words, if we talk about, like we spoke before, about cybersecurity, here we can talk also about artificial intelligence, which is also a very, very strong element in the Israeli innovation industry. So, Cyborg, please.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning. Do you see my my screen?
We see you, and I just want to mention that Zeev Efrat here carries the same name like myself, Zeev Weiss, so we are both.
Yeah, I was about to introduce myself, but thank you for doing that. So I'm Zeev as well. Two wolves in one room, it's dangerous. And I'm the CEO of Cyborg. What Cyborg does is electronic component analytics. Very nice for all of us. Before, we've seen a lot of products that are based on electronics. Probably you do not believe that all those electronics components are actually not checked. And this industry is very vulnerable. So we are quite young company, founded 2019, already backed by investors. We have some key partners, which, as you can see, some of them are Japanese, and we are working in the high-level industry of the, electronics. And what I will do is I will run a short video that will give you a glance into what we do. While doing that, I would say that our founder started this company just because what you're going to see now happened already with a very, very large defense project that always was gone down. So about 2% to 15% of the components are actually not good. And this is a big risk to all the electronics manufacturing. What Cyborg does is we are checking every component during the production, each and every, the small ones, the big ones, the passive, the active ones. It is done by the SMT machines. They are taking the image anyway. And what we do is we take all this information, we run an AI analytics background, and we come out with analytics and alerts on all the components that you use during your production. Of course, this brings you to the last thing, which is traceability, that today, especially in the automotive world, you have to have traceability, and you're not allowed even to send products into the market without traceability. So this is how we actually do it. I will go out from the movie and say. So you probably think about, okay, we're talking about electronic components. These are the small, tiny things on the PCB that everybody thinks they're okay. But the fact is that 8 out of 10 of the components are the ones that are causing a problem. And they are the biggest reliability and traceability issue when you're manufacturing electronics. So what we want to try to do for you guys in the electronic industry is actually harness AI and very simple vision traceability to make sure your profit line is not harmed by recalls and malfunctions of electronics. So this is how we do it. Cyborg actually aggregates all the images of the components during the production. We can do it, if I'm starting from the left side, we can do it also in the incoming inspection. We do it on all the components using the pick and place machines, the SMT machines today, and the big examples in Japan, like companies like Fuji, Panasonic, Yamaha. And we do it also on the AOI machine. When the board is actually ready, we check it again. So we aggregate all the images of the components during the production. Let's talk for a second at what can do an unsafe, what is an unsafe component? What is actually the harm? Today, the fraud market, believe it or not, is around $70 billion market. The total market of electronic companies is $550 billion. And out of that, 70 billion is fraud. Recycle, fake, forged age, cloned, all that we can discover. There are a lot of quality issues on the components themselves. And this is also an issue which is done by genuine electronic manufacturer, but still there are quality issues. And the last one on the right is the marking and documentation. Sometimes there are mistakes that actually prevent you from doing traceability when you need it. So what Cyborg Solution is doing is we aggregate all the data. Everything goes to our cloud and go to into our AI engine, and then you can see it on dashboards. Now the dashboards are supporting the manufacturers and especially supporting the OEMs, the owners of the component, of the product. And that's a change in the industry. We are the only ones that give the owner of the product eyes into the manufacturer. How we do it? We, on every item, and what you see now is done on every item, passive or active, big or small. We identify the label of the item. We identify what kind of part is it. We check the homogeneity, which means if the item before and before and before are the same and look the same. And we identify the manufacturer. And this is our secret sauce. These are our patents. You can see in front of you now 4 types of capacitors, very small capacitors. They all look the same. We are able to distinguish between them and identify which manufacturer was actually providing them. And that allows us to check the authentication of each item. Sorry for that. Something jumped for me. Okay. And then after doing and checking the identification of each manufacturer, we know if it's genuine or not. Then we check the age of the component. We check for defects, and there are a lot of defects in items. These are genuine items with defects. You don't want those items on your products, and they were coming from products. We check for tampering, and this is the way why we have a CY, as Zeev said, because we checked if there's no malware placed on the hardware. Today, the easiest way to attack is actually malware hardware, not software. And we check every component. And the last thing, we check if the decoding is correct. So how we do it? We work on the placement machine. The placement machine actually takes every image of every component And then instead of deleting this image, this is what is done today, we are able to take this image, analyze it, and come back with an answer to the machine in less than 100 milliseconds. So we are in line. As well, we have a solution for incoming warehouse test. We check all the components that are coming from, let's say, call it the gray market, and we check on them on top, and we can give the owner a validation that this is now a traceable reel. If we are looking at what we do is we start very early in the supply chain. This is the first time that the supply chain gets real information and evidence on what they buy. Because today they buy a reel with electronic components on it. They don't know if it's good or bad, only if there are problems. But the quality issues they don't see. We prevent components from production analytics. During the production, we actually alert the production team. We do analysis on every item on every board. So you have good information about your products, your production, and the components you want to buy. So now you start buying different. And of course, we provide traceability. That optimizes the defect recovery. Instead of recovering by lot, recovering thousands of boards that you manufacture, we are able to do what we call forensic traceability, and you recover only tens or hundreds instead of thousands. And this is a big impact on the industry. So remember those automotive recalls that are because of electronics. There were about 15 million like them last year. This could be reduced. This is a profit that the industry lost with no reason. We have, if I'm going now into the micro of that, we provide reports on every reel that was used for production. We provide an analytic platform that is used by the OEM and is used by the EMS. So everyone can see what's going on during production. And we provide a board certificate that says all the components on this board were checked, all the components are free of tampering, and we compare between the different boards. So that's the new standard for electronic manufacturing in the high end today. Just a few examples. I'm going to be very short, Zeev. I see your smile. Thank you. This is a reel with counterfeit components. We alert after 30 components, and actually we saved 2,866 boards out that were manufactured with a wrong part. And another one, again, we did a rework after 12 items, and we reduced instead of 1,000 boards to only 12 boards. That's a major change. We actually comply with all the standards, but practically those standards do not comply with the industry. They don't defend you. The only way to defend against counterfeit, against rework, against traceability that is not good, is actually check all the items, and this is what we're doing. To recap, we minimize the recall cost. We watch and analyze all the components. We do a smart decision based on evidence, no human in the loop, and surgical traceability, which is a new thing into the market. Thank you, and questions. These are our patents.
Thank you, Zeev, very much. I'm sure after what I will tell you, you will never forget Zeev. Zeev said before, we both are called Zeev. Zeev is a wolf in English, and he said two wolves in the same room. In Japanese, Zeev is an okami. So you have two okamis in the same room. If you have any question for Zeev, then please, chat, use the chat to write to him, because we need to move to the next company, and the next company comes really in time. It's called Effectivate. And Effectivate, after listening to all these exciting presentations, you will see that Effectivate is an innovative brain training program combining the strengthening of memory and attention infrastructure with learning memory technique that assist in daily activities. I'm sure we do need this kind of technology after listening to all your presentations. So Effectivate, please proceed.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Shai Granot. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Effectivate. And I'm going to tell you the story of Effectivate. Effectivate is a web-based software designed to promote cognitive maintenance for elderly. The company was established in 2018, and in June 2019, we already had a software ready, MVP, and we went to start testing the product with beta testers. Where in September 19, we went to the market and started to sell the product. So up to today, we already have almost 10,000 clients in 2 years, and a revenue of $5 million without a man. The most important thing here is that the data also indicate that the software is not only sold, but is actively used by the target audience with more than 6 million played games, an average of 2.85 weekly training, and about 40% of the user who are renewing the subscription after 1 year of usage. Also in May 2021, the company was signed a distribution agreement with Clalit, that is the biggest HMO in Israel, and that promoting the product as a wellness product. So as we are a SaaS company, the ARR of the company today until the end of December is standing on $4.2 million. Let's talk about the problem. The need that led Effectivate comes from the increase in life expectancy and the sudden awareness of the new age group. These are people who are retiring, but have an average of another 20, 30, sometimes also 40 years ahead of them. In fact, with the age and with the decrease in the level of activity, there is an acceleration of cognitive decline, which is mainly expressed in complaints of memory loss. As you see in the screen, 40% of the people complain on memory loss. It's important to understand that cognitive decline has many adverse effects on social engagement, managing life, like taking meds, things that can also may have a risk of life. So the solution is brain training, is standing on brain plasticity. It's not something that we invented, the brain training, but Effectivate is taking the brain training apps to the new level, integrating technology, scientific knowledge, and optimizing the product. The need of Effectivate became clear to me when I worked in another company that produced, like other companies, a one-size-fits-all product, which ignore the special need of the elderly. At the same time, I was experiencing dementia in my close family, and I understood the importance of intervention in the early stage. So what we are doing in Effectivate, we are reaching more people immediately, independent of the locomotion and mobility, and of course, low cost. So if you have a problem of memory today, and you need to go to the clinician or to the doctor, we understand that it makes a problem because not everybody can reach to the doctor. So that's what that's the idea of Effectivate, to take this to everybody's home. So this is how the software looks like. It works on tablet, on telephone, on computer. It's a web app. And I'm going to show you a short video that explain it. You can see some of the exercises that in the program. Each time a user gets inside the program, you receive a training, a complete training that lasts something like 15 to 20 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eran Katz, and I have been dealing with one question for several decades. How can we get the most out of our memory? I'm a memory coach. I have written several books on the subject, and you may have also heard that I got into the Guinness Book of Records.
So you can train yourself every day. You can do 3 times a week, two times a week. And what is important here that you receive tools of memory strategies, how to work on your memory. So it's not just a game, it's something much more. And everything is focus on the elderly. Of course, you can see your progress inside the software. So if we look at the competitors, and there are competitors in the market, there are other companies which are older than us and bigger than us. But when we take a closer look at the criteria, we have defined with the expert and the end users the important product design for seniors. And when we look at that, we are focusing on target audience like seniors, and this is what makes the product unique. For example, unlike other products, it include cognitive strategies, technological accessibility, customized content, especially for elderly, and rehabilitative principles that emphasize guiding of the user, implementing it in the everyday life person. Of course, technical support. So in many ways, our customers differentiate us from other companies in the market. Since 2020, we have teamed up with a number of researchers to begin a process of validation, where one of the questions that interest for us most was how effective it can contribute for daily life. The first study examined the effect of 6 weeks of training with Effectivate on speech perception, which is a critical ability for social engagement. So after 6 weeks, with 2 groups, that one that was using Effectivate and another group that was not using Effectivate, we showed a significant improvement in cognitive abilities, and not so that something that called far transfer, meaning the user was training in the computer visually, but he was improving cognitively in something different in a daily life. Future research was done on healthy adult living in community houses. So they received 18 sessions. And also here we showed the primary result of improving of memory and learning tasks. Let's look at the finance. We started in initial the company with $1 million. Until today, it's $1.6 million raised. And the company, just a second. You can see the growth of the sales of the company. This is only in 2 years, and it's only in Israel. Today, the ARR, as I said, is standing on 4.2 million. And the product currently consists of 20 games. And in the coming years, it's designed to grow to 40 games in this year, and expand the strategies in the system, in the software, in order to implement it in the daily life. So in order to do that and increase the company, we are now in the current round raising $5 million to the company. And as I see the growth of the company, I can tell you that what I'm planning on the company, you can see in the chart, 2020 was 1.5 million. Last year, 2021 was 3 million. And we are planning to grow in the next 4 years and to reach 100 million in sales, reaching to be a unicorn company. Regarding the testimonials, we have thousands of testimonials today, people that are writing to us and telling about the product. I can tell you that in the last 4 years, all the design of the product was specifically for seniors. And that's what really makes us unique. This is the team. Today, the company have 40 people, more or less. And we have experts from professor, doctors, okay, and other specialists. Regarding the vision of the company, as I said, in the next 4 years, we are planning to reach, to be a unicorn and to reach 100 million in sales per year. And for last, I want to leave you with this slide. I want to share with you with my vision, how I see the product in the few years. The future of the product will meet some very important needs. Personal trainer, as you see in the right, in the left side, a training that is optimal, adapted to the user, that is will learn the user, will train the user especially to his need, calibrate itself through the training, and signal to the user when there's a decline in performance or motivation. In addition, we will offer a product that for the clinician and doctors that will allow the clinician to define the training for each patient, receiving report and performance queries and about the patient, and inform when the patient shows a signal of decline like MCI and performance of motivation.
Thank you, Shai.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shai, very much. It was very interesting, a different approach of innovation that for innovation than these that we've seen before. Wow, our time is up. It's already more than 10:30. If there, I appreciate there will be questions later to the presenters and to the different companies that they presented. So let me just, if there is nothing that Yuki or Daniel or anybody else wants to say, so let me sum up. As I said before, Kyushu is very important. We do appreciate very much Tokyo and Osaka and the big places, but we really think the future lies in the smaller places like innovations centers like Kyushu, where the Israeli companies can meet, SMEs, also branches of big Japanese companies, which from my experience sometimes are more effective when they look at the project or a product than the headquarter in Tokyo or Osaka. But still, there's place for both of them, and we would like to see more Kyushu in Israel. And I wish to thank all our presenters, and I wish to thank, of course, Yuki-san and Daniel Kolbar and the Kyushu Innovation Center. And let's hope our next meeting can be not only face-to-face, but physically in the same place. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Good day.
ワイス様、そして会員企業の皆様、ありがとうございました。なお、来週2月28日にご紹介いただきました5社の会員企業の様との商談会を予定いたしております。ご希望の方は最後にご案内するアンケートに商談会申し込みフォームがございますので、よろしくお願いいたします。さて、ミッション第1日目終了のお時間となりましたが、最後にご参加の皆様へアンケートのお願いです。本ウェビナー終了後に、お知らせ画面の URL よりアンケートフォームへ移動できますので、ご協力をよろしくお願いいたします。皆様、本日は長時間にわたりご参加いただきまして、誠にありがとうございました。本日ご紹介いたしました多くの情報が皆様の新たな事業展開などのお役に立てれば幸いです。明日も引き続きミッション第2日目を開催いたします。開始時間は本日と同じく15時30分からです。以上をもちましてイスラエルイノベーション視察ウェブミッション第1日目を終了いたします。本日は誠にありがとうございました。明日も皆様のご参加をお待ちいたしております。